We said a couple of weeks ago that the polar vortex would stretch down and make things interesting into early January, and here we are. It's meteorologist Joe Martucci here with this edition for Snow Search, taking a look at what is expected for January 8th. Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about the weekend nor'easter as well. And Sean, good to be back with you here. We had Matt Hollander with us last week. You come in at a great time because it's busy.
It is. We thought that things would be changing. The whole weather pattern would shift a little bit after the first of the year. And that is going to be the case. We've got this first storm we're going to talk about. And then there are multiple storms we see kind of coming down the road for the rest of January. And each one of these has its own peculiarities about it. So we'll get to those one at a time.
Yeah. And for everybody tuning in, it might be your first time watching Snow Search. We do this every Wednesday. It's broad forecast for individual storms, but we're looking at next week. We're looking 5 to 11 days out. Beyond that 7-day forecast, we run from North Carolina on up into New York. Sean, as somebody who is living in New Jersey right now, I think I'm going to take the liberty and talk about this weekend storm because we have not seen a lot of snow in the past, I don't know, 600 days. And now we have the opportunity for some of that here. So let's take a look at this. This is a classic nor'easter, not the strongest one, fairly weak, to be honest with you. But we do have a nor'easter here that is on Wednesday, starting off in California. Now, you see another low pressure system in the Gulf of Mexico. That's going to move to the north and east, bring pretty much rain to the coastal plain, places like Orangeburg, the Outer Banks, getting into Richmond as well. But more importantly, what it does is it drags down colder air, which at least gives snow lovers some hope that snow comes with this. But what will happen is, we'll show you this in a second, as this, what ends up being our weekend nor'easter, moves across the Gulf Coast, that cold air pretty much erodes. So it comes in and it looks good, but it goes away just as quick as it comes in here. And what that means is that typical wintry smorgasbord where if you're along in south and east of I-95, it's rain. If you're on I-95 or just west of there, it's some kind of mix or ice. And then inland are the areas that do see that snow further west of I-95. And you see it here with some good snow in places like Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Newark, New Jersey, getting a good amount of snow, the Hudson Valley in New York. It does look like once you get up to Buffalo and further north of New York, yeah, it's snow, but probably not going to be as significant with this. Let's just take a look at what you can expect here with our map here. This is our first kind of what to expect map. And you see a bunch of different colors on this map. For Sean's area in Richmond here and for most of Virginia, it's pretty much all rain. Same thing for the far southern part of New Jersey. It's mostly to all rain. We do have this area of mixing and ice in the mountains, in the elevated areas of the Appalachian Mountains, and then getting into central Jersey, which, Sean, exists, right? Central Jersey exists?
Absolutely does.
Beautiful. And New York City, too. And then that plowable snow, that Goldilocks zone where it's just right for the snow lovers. Carlisle, Pennsylvania, Scranton, Pennsylvania, northwestern New Jersey, getting to Albany, New York. It does look like Glens Falls, Buffalo, on the outskirts of that heavy snow, but still expecting snow nonetheless. So, Sean, any thoughts on this nor'easter? We want to touch on it real quick before we got into next week.
We've been watching this last 2 or 3 days, and a lot of the trends with the model guidance have been a little warmer, a little less impressive, but still think there's going to be, as you mentioned, some sweet spot or Goldilocks zone. Cumberland, Maryland, Altoona, Pennsylvania, State College, Carlisle, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, going into the central Hudson Valley, Albany, before you see the amount of snow and also decrease much farther northward, going up to the Champlain Valley. But yeah, for here in Virginia, at least for the coastal plain and the fall line areas, Richmond, it's largely going to be a cold rain. But we are also concerned about some legit ice in southwestern Virginia. But we'll talk about that at our Virginia properties.
Yeah, and
Richmond.com. Yeah.
Great point, because on your local news website, more than likely, we have snow videos or at least storm coverage videos for you as well. And that's very true at PressOfAC.com, very true at Richmond.com, Roanoke as well. So we do have you covered in more detail in those
Yeah.
areas. But,
That's where the details will be. Yeah, you got it, buddy.
absolutely. So we take a look at our winter indices, and we said last week that a number of our indexes were tanking. That means it was going negative, and that means colder shots possible, big storm risk possible. We're certainly seeing the storms, some cold, but certainly seeing the storms. But it looks like even as we go into the middle of January, even getting into the 17th or 18th, the North Atlantic oscillation stays negative. The Arctic oscillation gets even more negative. That promotes more of a waviness in the jet stream, that north-south or south-north moving jet stream that can bring those big coastal storms and big cold. Doesn't mean it's a definite, but it at least puts that in play. When it's positive, it's really hard to do that. We also look at the Pacific North Atlantic Index, and it's pretty much neutral. It's been neutral since we've been doing snow search, so little influence from there. But the time is now that we are going to be stormy. And we've been talking about this. We've said it even when we did our winter outlook on our Across the Sky podcast.
Yeah.
It is going to be a stormy winter. It's just how much of that will be snow. And we're seeing this start to come to fruition now. So let's take a look at what we can expect next week with our mid-level weather pattern.
Yeah, we kind of figured December would be relatively quieter with respect to ice and snow, but the storm track has shifted southward as expected. So here we look at the mid-level weather pattern, or basically what drives storm motion, and we started on January 8th, so Monday. So once this Saturday storm is gone, which is that one at L up by Portland, then the next one comes in. You can see it in Tulsa, there near Atlanta. So the 9th and 10th right there, moving almost right over Lake Erie. And remember that the worst conditions aren't right beneath that big L. They tend to be off to the east or to the south of that by a few dozen to a few hundred miles. So that's going to be the big weather player, we think, early next week in that Tuesday to Wednesday time frame. And then even once that one lifts away, there are going to be a couple more systems taking shape late next week toward Friday and Saturday. So there's still going to be a lot more storminess in the pipeline, even after this one is gone on Saturday, and even after one is gone on Tuesday of next week. So we are going to stay in a very active pattern for some time to come. But for this Tuesday storm next week, it looks arguably a little warmer than the one that most of us are going to go through this coming Saturday. So as we look at this second storm in particular, around the 9th to 10th of January, so I think most places are going to do just some heavy rain. And if anything, this is going to have more overall precipitation versus the one that's coming through on Saturday. But because of that, it is going to be warmer. We think the chance for legit snow is going to be retreating even farther northward into the Laurels of Pennsylvania, going back up into the Adirondacks of New York, and possibly even the Green and White Mountains in northern New England. But we think it's really going to be tough to get any significant snow out of this particular system Tuesday, Wednesday next week, south of the Mason-Dixon line. So it is going to be active, but just not quite as snowy as a lot of people, I think, would like, Joe.
Yeah, this storm screams to me 50s and 60s with heavy rain and maybe some thunderstorms. The National Weather Service is already concerned about the risk for severe weather with this storm. We're recording this on Wednesday. This storm is 5 days away or so even 6 days away. So it definitely bears watching. Looks to be a strong storm. And for those snow lovers out there, we need those L's that you saw on that previous map to come a little bit further still to the south and east to get us some more widespread snow. Could we do it? Well, we look at the polar vortex again. That is in the stratosphere. The polar vortex is in the stratosphere. That's 100,000 feet high. What happens in the stratosphere typically takes 10 to 20 days to show a reflection down at the surface. So what do you mean by this? Well, we're looking at what the polar vortex is forecasted to be next week. And you see these blues, these strongest blues in Greenland, stretching down into the northeast. Does it stretch down enough to show some kind of signal for us in the later part of January? And it's going to be questionable. It's going to be tough here. It does, to me at least, look like through the month of January, the nor'easters that we see, and next week's storm is not going to be a nor'easter, but the nor'easters that we see probably are going to be your classic 95 rain snow line. That's at least what this is telling me. I would probably like that polar vortex to be stretched down a little bit more into the northeast and into the mid-Atlantic. We still have February. That we did highlight February to be hey, if we're going to see big snow, that's the month. January isn't really going to be the month, but that's at least what this is kind of telling me as we go into the rest of January. I don't know. Do you agree, disagree, Sean?
I think you're right to the point that it is an important thing to get on the table before we can get into the more particulars of precisely where there may be snow. But this does lend itself, I think you're right, to a lot of that classic I-95 idea where you have the heavier snow a little bit farther inland and the immediate coastal cities, whether it's Boston to New York to Philadelphia, even down to DC, and sometimes as far south as here in Richmond, can get snow. But you just have to nudge something 50 or 60 miles. And when you're talking about something 2 or 3 weeks away, 50 or 60 miles isn't that much to ask.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm not saying every storm is
I
going to
know,
be
I
like
know.
that. I'm just saying generally, it doesn't. This doesn't scream anything too crazy, yet for the coastal people. If you're watching this and you're in Roanoke or Bristol or Buffalo, still looking. Of course, we're going to get
Oh yeah,
snow,
that's
no
very
doubt
likely.
about it. So let's close off with some of our notes here for next week. Nor'easter and Sunday here, snow and ice in New England and in the mountains of the Appalachian Mountains here. We have a more powerful storm, the 9th to the 10th. Flooding rain certainly possible. Not much in the way of big snow unless you're in western Pennsylvania and then upstate New York. For those of you, yeah, that could be a big snow and staying active as we go into January. So, Sean, let's talk about New Year. What are you searching for in the new year?
A dermatologist.
I can recommend you one, but it's
Yes,
a couple hours
I
away.
hey, this reminder, stay out of the sun, kids.
Yes.
That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. I understand. I had a similar situation too.
Yes, as you
A
have.
couple of years ago.
But I
Um,
had some interesting things for the new year already. So there you go.
there you go. Um, I'm looking forward to our talk, Sean. I want to just give a shout out to us here,
Oh
a plug.
yes.
At the end of the month, you and I are going to be in the flesh. Maybe we'll do a snow search in the flesh. That could be fun. We're going to be at the American Meteorological Society conference in Baltimore. It's the big weather conference. 4 or 5,000 weather people related in the weather enterprise will be there. We're doing a talk about things like snow search and what we're doing with our across the sky weather team, and we'll be sure to text you guys all about it. But we're looking forward to that. That's at the end of the month in Baltimore, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to see you in person, Sean.
Yeah, it's always fun to go to these conferences. So this is the last week in January in Baltimore on the harbor. So I'm really looking forward to catching up with you, Joe, in person, and with a lot of our weather colleagues from across the enterprise, as we like to say.
Yes, absolutely. So that's what we have going on with this week's snow search. Remember, local details on your local news website. Sean and I will be back with you next Wednesday to talk about what we can expect as we get into really the depths of winter. It doesn't even feel real, but we're like 2 weeks away from like the core of
Mhm.
winter. And we'll talk with you all then. So take care, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.